Start. We are good to go. Okay, so good morning, good evening to everyone. And Alankar, thank you so much for giving this opportunity to present a view on metrics to measure. Um, दोन तीन गोष्टी आहेत. मी when I go through the flow of this presentation, I will try to get some examples, real life examples, either from my current industry where I'm working in or my past industry where I worked already. And we will, towards the end, we will try to tie these threads to what's happening with all of us in this startup cohort. Okay. And towards the end, we would want to have the question and answer. Presentation mother, let me continue with the flow unless somebody has a very specific question on a specific slide. But then towards the end, between me, Alankar, Sudhir, we will try to answer most of your questions related to how this is applicable to all of us and how it is relevant to the team here. So let me start with the first question. Why should we even measure things? Okay. आपण ज्या वेळेला स्टार्टअप असतो किंवा रनिंग ऑर्गनायझेशन असतो, युअर ग्रोथ हॅकर्स आर व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट. You need to know where to focus. You need to know what it is going to be meaning to all of us when you are into business, be it at a very early stage or be it at an advanced stage. So there is a say, those who do not measure cannot improve and cannot progress. I don't need to explain much about it. जर मला माहितीच नसेल, माझा जर रेफरन्स पॉइंटच माहिती नसेल की मी आता कुठे आहे आणि मला कुठे जायचं आहे, तर ऑब्व्हियसली आय विल नेव्हर नो द डायरेक्शन. आय विल नेव्हर नो वेअर आय एम सपोज टू प्रोग्रेस ऑन. I was reading one Harvard Business Review edition a couple of days back when I was preparing for this session, and I came across a very interesting article there which says that when is it okay to trust your guts? Okay? And that was a very interesting article. While people say that most of the big decisions are made during the course of time, which are gut-based feeling, people do believe, even the people in startup here, कधीतरी सकाळी उठल्या उठल्या असं वाटलं असेल की अरे this idea is going to click me, and you would have started. So your gut told you to probably leave what you were doing till yesterday and start something new today morning. So gut definitely has a role to play. Okay. So an example, a very relevant example, that if it is a life or death situation, typically the medical professional will go on guts to go and operate you in the operation theater, or if there are complications that pop up, that gut feeling is a good feeling to work upon. But the gut feeling may not be good when it comes to investors investing into your business. So while gut feeling is good, it is not necessarily every time the way it should work in your favor or somebody else's favor. So we will definitely need some measures. All investors, angel investors, VCs, they go by hard facts, hard data, and that's why your measurement only will tell you what the data looks like, and that is required. So is all data relevant? मैं सगळा data कुठूनही येऊ देत, is that relevant? It may or may not be, and that's why we need a specific metric to specific outcome, and then see how that measurement happens. And that's why you will need a metric to measure, and that's our topic going to be. So what I intend to do is now onwards, we will start getting into more details and see which metric is relevant. I'm very sure that all our startup people here already know some metric. They would have already done some studies. It could be repetition for them, but collectively, we will still be convinced that what we are talking about makes a lot of sense to us and it's still relevant to all of us. If you see what is a good metric, simple. There has to be some measurement to decide which metrics is good and which metrics is not good. The metric has to be simple and understandable. मी तुम्हाला एक उदाहरण देतो. मी ज्या वेळेला बँकेत होतो त्यावेळेला आमच्याकडे रिपोर्ट बनायचे. So those who are probably from my generation or older generation and those who have worked in banks will know, एक पी रिपोर्ट नावाचा रिपोर्ट बनायचा पब्लिक सेक्टर बँक मध्ये. प्रायव्हेट सेक्टर बँक मध्ये तो फारसा नव्हता. तर पी रिपोर्ट म्हणजे काय असायचं, त्या ब्रँचचा प्रोग्रेस रिपोर्ट असायचा. Ideally speaking, that report should have been prepared by the branch head or somebody who is a decision maker who is interested in looking at that progress. पण टिपिकली तो रिपोर्ट एखाद्या क्लार्कला की ज्याला दुसरं काहीच काम जमत नाहीये त्याला तो रिपोर्ट देऊन मोकळे व्हायचे. कारण त्याच्यामध्ये एका फॉर्मॅटमध्ये फक्त नंबर भरत जायचे होते. नोबडी अंडरस्टूड एव्हर की त्या नंबरचं पुढे होतं काय. आणि ती अशी एक पट्टी बनायची, लांबच्या लांब पट्टी एका लेजरच्या पेपरमध्ये, आणि त्याच्यामध्ये नंबरचे नंबर भरतायत आणि नोबडी न्यू की त्याचं रेशो पुढे काय होणार आहे, त्याच्या इन्फॉर्मेशनचं पुढे काय होणार आहे. आणि ती जर एखाद्या झोनल ऑफिसच्या माणसांनी नाही वाचली, की ज्याला माहिती नाही की ते वाचायचं कसं, आणि जर तुम्हाला मला वाचायला दिले तर यू विल नेव्हर अंडरस्टँड. ऑल यू विल सी सम सिरीज ऑफ नंबर्स. So it was definitely not understandable. So your metric, when you are saying that my metric is going to be good, it has to be very simple and very understandable to anybody who is receiving that metric. It should make sense. Comparative. सो मी जसं मगाशी म्हटलं तसं की आपल्याला जर प्रोग्रेस करायची असेल तर मी काल कुठे होतो हे जर मला माहिती असेल तर मी आज कुठे जाणार आहे हे ठरवू शकतो आणि उद्या ते परत कम्पेअर करू शकतो की मी आजच्या टार्गेट वरती पोहोचलो का नाही पोहोचलो. It has to be comparative. It cannot be a static number as of today. It should give you those insights. Accurate, I don't need to say anything about it. It is a very, very important factor. मी पुढे जाऊन एक तुम्हाला एक्झाम्पल देणार आहे हाऊ पीपल प्ले विथ द डेटा अँड हाऊ इट कॅन बिकम कम्प्लिटली अनयुजेबल. स्टँडर्ड एवढ्यासाठी की ज्या वेळेला डेटा कलेक्ट होतो किंवा ते मेजर मेट्रिक बनवलं जातं ते मेट्रिक जर स्टँडर्ड नसेल तर पर्सन स्पेसिफिक ते होत जातं आणि एव्हरी डे कॅन बी अ डिफरंट मेट्रिक. सो द फॉर्मॅट म्हणा किंवा त्याच्यातनं जो डेटा येणार आहे म्हणा किंवा जो इंटरप्रिट होणार आहे म्हणा, दॅट हॅज टू बी व्हेरी व्हेरी स्टँडर्ड, टाइमली. परत एक उदाहरण सांगतो. आपल्याकडे पूर्वी इंडियन बँकिंग सिस्टम मध्ये रिझर्व्ह बँक ऑफ इंडियाला दर फ्रायडेला एक डेटा लागायचा, कारण तो डेटा इकॉनॉमी लेवलला कन्सोलिडेट होतो. तो रिपोर्ट सगळ्या बँकातनं जनरेट होऊन येईपर्यंत पुढचा महिना झालेला असायचा. सो नाव लुक ॲट इट. somebody at the Ministry of Finance, somebody at a economy level decision makers used to get data which is a month old data. With core banking coming in, with technology coming in, that period is reduced, but it is still not online data. It is still a data which is 2 weeks old or at least 1 week old. And the decisions based on those facts and figures are not necessarily accurate or appropriate because the report that goes in is not timely. It is still 2 weeks old. But that may not be the case when it comes to the startup companies. It may not be a case when you and me are talking. So today we get a data which is like maybe at least yesterday old, if not current. Game proof. This is a very interesting part. तुम्ही ज्या वेळेला मेट्रिक डिझाईन करता किंवा तुम्हाला काही डेटा मेजर करायचा असेल, काही आउटकम मेजर करायचा असेल, पीपल प्ले विथ डेटा हिअर. एक उदाहरण सांगतो तुम्हाला परत. कस्टमर सॅटिस्फॅक्शन is one of the data which can be very easily fudged. Example is when you go to probably Ola, Uber, you get an app to rate the customer service, or you get an app to rate the driver or the ride, which is fairly genuine because you are the one who is going to rate it. But imagine in India at least, and in some of the countries where you get the corporate cab drivers who come with this trip sheet, they call it as a trip sheet, आणि त्याच्यामध्ये खालती बाय डिफॉल्ट सही घेऊन टाकतात. आणि मग त्याच्यानंतर त्याच्यात काय डेटा भरलाय, ती राईड क्वालिटी कशी होती, ड्रायव्हर कसा होता, क्लिनलीनेस कसा होता, हे सगळं ड्रायव्हर ठरवतो. So you will always see, irrespective of how your ride was very bumpy, the office always sees that all rides are rated at 5 star. So the intent here is not to fudge the data, but it gets fudged. So it gets probably not accurate, the not real reflection of what you want to measure. So don't allow your metric should not allow people to play with that kind of fudging of data, and that's why your metric has to be a game-proof metric. Behavior changing. So when you have a metric that comes out and tells you something, finally it should result into the change in behaviors. 1, people. 2, your decision making ability. 3, organizational processes. 4, the way you are going to make decisions. So the metric should tell you something and should result into a behavior change at an organization level, at a team level, at an individual level. So metric will help you when you want to measure your movement towards your business goals. Okay, if it is not helping you to move towards business goal, it is not maybe helpful. आय मेन्शन ऑलरेडी की मला जर काल कुठे होतो हे माहिती असेल आणि जर उद्या कुठे जर जायचं हे माहिती असेल तरच ते मेट्रिक तुम्हाला मदत करणार आहे. अदरवाइज दॅट मेट्रिक विल नॉट हेल्प यू ॲट अ लॉंग रन. The insight needs to be very honest, and this is a key here, because unless the insight which you get, so the metric telling you my customer service is good or bad, unless it is a very honest, you will feel that I am doing the right thing. मी परत उदाहरण सांगतो की माझ्याकडे पूर्वी एक सर्व्हिस प्रोव्हायडर होता जो मला कायम एअरपोर्ट वरनं घेऊन जायचा. The owner of that service provider always thought that his service is delivered great, but he never realized that I have never filled in that trip sheet. It is the driver who is filling and updating those columns, because I really don't care. When I reach the airport, I'm just out of that taxi and I just go to airport. Or when I'm home, I just leave the cab and get home. मग त्याच्यानंतर तो ड्रायव्हर सगळे किलोमीटर अपडेट करतो, सगळं करतो. When we happen to have a conversation, an annual review with that service provider, then only he realized this is what is happening. So after that, what he removed that feedback sheet from that trip list, and then he started sending that on the email to the person. So at least some of the people would respond, and the insight become very honest insight. But otherwise, just imagine what was rated as 5-star service previously was not really a 5-star service, and he got to know the honest insight only after people started responding on email. So your metric has to be very honest. Now, why are you doing this? You are doing this to be always be ahead of your competition. You want to be the best in the market. If you are not best in the market, then there is always a scope of improvement. Of course, the people who are at the best also have a scope of improvement to remain best. And if there are many best, then you need to be the best of the bestest. I mean, that's not the English term, but that's how I wanted to tell you that it will help you to stay ahead of the competition. Now, but at the same time, we have seen metric failing. Even as when I look at some delivery units, when I look at the portfolio, even we fail, because there is a data that comes from all over. Practically, आज माझ्याकडे असं होतं की when I manage a Europe region, I get data from so many people that I get drowned with that data and end up not reading that data. So if that is the case with you, it is not really going to help you, because that data is not going to tell you what you are looking for. So if you are going to get drowned with data, you better avoid it. And that's why go back to the previous slide where we said it has to be very standard, very readable, very easy, very simple, which will help you to make some decisions. Make things look good when they are actually not so good. Same example. The taxi driver said that I have been delivering a great service, but it was not the case. So that data is of actually no meaning, because it is a false data. Major wrong things with which is not required for business. बरेच वेळेला काय होतं की मेट्रिक्स मध्ये, आणि this I have seen happening in banks very often. Somebody had told that measure a weaker sector data. Somebody had told measure a priority sector data. Somebody had told some bicycle data. I mean, imagine. I mean, who takes a bicycle loan these days in India? At least not in India. Okay? स्कीम असतात. अजूनही पब्लिक सेक्टर बँक मध्ये त्या स्कीम आहेत. पण तो डेटा कलेक्ट करण्यावरती nobody has ever bothered to remove all these data elements or reports required from the banking sector. They were designed in 1950s when bicycle was a luxury and people had to take a loan to buy a bicycle. पण आजही असा डेटा जातो, and there is no bicycle loan active in any bank today. Of course, it is on paper. If you still go and ask for it, you will get it, but nobody focuses on that. But these kind of data keep measuring different parameters for a banking and the branch related parameters, and these are absolutely not required for business. But somebody in the branch, somebody in the regional office, somebody in the zonal office keeps spending a lot of time in compiling data, and it is not at all useful for your business. Nobody does it these days. Okay, this is a very classic case. माझ्याकडे ज्या वेळेला IT industry मध्ये you will see, and those who are in IT industry or have worked in IT industry, you will probably appreciate this. We decide to build a proposal, okay, the proposal for client, and then we ask people to optimize efforts. But optimization of efforts also has some element of buffer. So when the first people start putting together a data, there is a team lead who adds something and optimizes some data in there. Then it goes to a manager level. So manager, knowing or not knowing what TL has done or a team lead has done, they end up adding some optimization into that report. Then it goes further. It goes to a delivery lead or somebody who's looking after that region. They also add some optimization into that. So finally, what was X turns out to be X plus Y plus Z. And that optimization makes no sense because it is optimized, it got optimized so many times that it is far away from the reality. And that kind of metric is not going to help you. So there are nowadays a lot of built-in checks that have come in, and those checks will be required even for you when you look at your metrics. This is very interesting. Not changing based on the change data. A classic example सांगतो, फार long एका ब्रांचची बॅलन्स शीट जनरेट होत होती. That balance sheet program had some problem and nobody noticed that problem. So when the profit is reported, so typically when the balance sheet is built in a computer system, it is the profit is or a loss is a function of difference between the asset and liability when it is printed on a balance sheet. Okay, so there was a balance sheet which was generated and which was presented, and one day one of the branch manager noticed it that none of my business have changed in last 1 month or 2 months, but my balance sheet figure is changing. And other way around, my other parameters have changed, my staff has changed, my offtake has changed, but my profit has not changed. So something had gone wrong in creating that metric or creating that report. And that had a very classic example. Some brilliant mind, instead of really trying to tally the transactions and an outcome from an accounting perspective, had looked at the 5-year data and tried to fix the profit amount and tried to fix the balance sheet total. So irrespective of what total actually comes in from a transaction generation, the report was still a constant. And that report is no good. So if you have any metric which is not changing, even after there are data which has changed, then that data is of no use to you. So those metrics will not be helpful, and they will lead to your false positives and false negatives. Okay? We'll go still further. So that means which is the matrix which is really required. So there are two type of matrix typically people look at it. One is an actionable metric and another is a vanity metric. So actionable metric is something you should be looking at, okay, because this actionable metric will tell you where the action is required to be taken. It will be very focused on the business outcome you are going to chase over a period of time. If you know the goals, say for example, I will take an example of GrammePay because we so often interact and we so often talk about what is happening in GrammePay world. The actions which are defined from a GrammePay perspective is social entrepreneur, the devices, the people, the connects, number of banks they are dealing with, and number of payment transactions they are going to deal with. So these are all data and these are all business goals which GrammePay must be looking at it. And only after they look at this data, the metric which is going to tell them that what was their target yesterday, what is their target today, what is their target tomorrow, only then that metric will help them to make business decisions. And that's where your actionable metric is something which is a desired metric versus vanity metric. Vanity metrics are typically used, they appear to be a good metric, but they are not really, because they don't tell you what is the reality on the ground. I will give you a couple of examples here. Number of people visited a website page. You can say 1,000,000 people are visiting my website page, and you can feel good about it. You can feel happy about it that there is such a big number visiting my page. But if these visitors on your page are not going to act upon further, so they are not going to log in, they are not going to place an order, they are not going to convert into a business for you, that metric telling you 1,000,000 visitors a day is of no use. while you can feel happy about it, you can use it in your some of the social talks, it is really not going to help you in your business. Another example, there are downloads which keep happening on the games. So I'll give you example of my own daughter. She keeps downloading different games just to check what that game is about, but then she again uninstalls it. So if somebody is looking at the metric saying that my game is downloaded or my app is downloaded 1,000 times in a day, is an incorrect measure of success, because you are ignoring or you're not even looking at that out of 1,000 people who downloaded that app, 900 of them have actually uninstalled it in next few hours. So feeling good about 1,000 downloads a day is not going to help you. Or if your app is showing that there have been 500,000 downloads, you should be not really feeling good about it, because the reality is only 10% of them are going to use it. Okay. Or if I give you another example, if your metric is incomplete, it is giving you only half information. If you go to a mall, the mall owner might tell you that I have a footfall of 10,000 customers every day, and that is why my prices for a shop is premium, because you will see 10,000 people footfall. That is a vanity part of this metric. If you do not know, out of those 10,000 footfall in a mall, 8,000 people are actually going to the top floor to the multiplex to watch a movie. So those 8,000 are of no use to you for deciding whether you want to buy a shop at a premium price into that mall, because then you are looking only at 2,000 footfall distributed in some 200 shops and so on. I'm only trying to tell you that decide which metric is going to tell you, and there is a very simple test to decide whether the metric which is coming to you is an actionable metric or a vanity metric. If a metric comes to you, if a data comes to you, ask yourself a question, that am I able to make a business decision looking at this number or looking at this data? If your immediate answer is yes, then in all probabilities that is an actionable metric. If your immediate answer is maybe or let me think, then in all probabilities that metric is a vanity metric. So avoid those situations. You look into the mirror. If you are not a Superman, and if your mirror is showing you a Superman, something wrong there, and stay away from it. If I take this discussion a little further, the metric also, some of the metric are lagging metrics, some of the metric are leading metrics. Let's look at what a lagging metric is. Lagging metric will typically tell you what has happened in the past. Okay, they measure the outcome of the actions that happened in the past. A typical example of that would be your all financial metric, your revenue, your margins, your gross profits, your all financial metrics are typically lagging metrics. Versus if you look at the leading metric, they are all forward looking metric. They tell you what is required in future. They define your business goals. That helps you to decide what it is going to be tomorrow. And one of the example of that is North Star metric. I'm going to talk in next slide about it. But these are leading metrics. Which one is good? You require both. There is no choice that can I rely only on leading metrics or can I rely only on lagging metrics. You need both, and obviously there are some pros and cons. I'm not going to spend much time on that because it will come in subsequent slides. But idea here is you need to have a good combination of the lagging metric to tell you how my past has been, to make a corrective decisions if there is a course correction required. At the same time, you need a leading metric to decide where my journey is going to be, how am I going to decide my journey, what path am I going to choose, what is required, and so on. So it's a combination of both which will be required for you to make your business decisions. Then what is a North Star metric? So मराठीत आपण म्हणतो ना की ध्रुवपद, एक ध्रुव बाळाचं एक आढळ स्थान असतं which always points at the north. And that North Star metric is nothing but to tell you to keep going on the north. So north is always indicated typically on the upside, and you are growing, and because you are growing, you're going on the north. That is how the North Star metric probably would mean in a simplest form. So this North Star metric is one of the most popular metric people follow. So be it startup, be it running business, be it anybody who want to really look at the business goal and keep driving their journey. And that's how the North Star metric defines a relationship between the customer. See, always remember, I mean, one of the point which we keep saying always, and we have seen this happening multiple times, the customer value which you deliver decides the success of your business. It is not the top line. It is not the money you generate. Money and revenue will be an outcome of the number of customers value delivered by your business or by your team. So if we really look at it, that what it means, there are different ways of looking at it. So let us see. I've given a title to this as the games people play. I know that's a very famous book, Games People Play, but I just wanted to use it to do something. There is an attention game. Okay. What does it mean? That the demands more and more time from the customer. A classic example, of course, I mean, Netflix, Spotify are typical examples where they demand your time and time. So more time you spend on Spotify, more time you spend on Netflix, more time you spend on these platforms, that is their business outcome, because there is a very likely possibilities that you might subscribe to their service. There is a very likely possibility that you will popularize that platform more and more. In our own startup fraternity here in this call, we see Event Beep is one of such organization which is going to play an attention game, or if they are not playing, they need to play this attention game. If you look at the transaction game, simple. More and more transactions done, better is the success, better is the value delivered to your customers. Example is very simple. Amazon, Flipkarts of the world. In our example, it could be probably Nash Agri, who is looking at more and more transactions to happen on the platform, and that's the transaction game you are into. If you are looking at the productivity game, now what productivity game means is number of activities or number of tasks which are completed using your platform or your application or your company, your service, whatever it could be. In our friends here, Ventura could be one of those examples who is into the productivity game. What does this mean to different companies? How are the leading brands or leading companies in market are using their NSM? What are their NSM North Star metrics? So Facebook always measures their success or their business goal by looking at the count of active users. Their vanity metric could be number of people holding a Facebook account. That means nothing to them, because their advertisement platform, there are a lot of revenues come from active users who are visiting Facebook at least once in a day. So they measure their business goal by number of active users per month. Amazon, needless to say, always look at the number of purchases in the month. So if I'm only browsing on Amazon to just find out or do a window shopping, it means nothing. And that's why transaction, when they look at the transaction, they don't count non-financial transactions as their NSM. They look at how many purchases have finally translated into their per month revenue, and that makes them looking at only the purchases that happened. Spotify, I already said, how much hours have you spent, how much time have you spent, that decides the NSM for Spotify. WhatsApp looks at the number of messages they are sent. So the bigger the volume sent on messages, bigger is the NSM, or that is what success is measured by WhatsApp. Airbnbs or hoteling industry, they looked at the book nights. They don't look at the people inquiring. They will look at the NSM only by measuring number of nights that people have paid, because that decides their value delivery to their customers. Uber or Olas of the world, they look at number of rides that have been undertaken in a region, in a country, during 1 week. So these are different examples of NSM. You will look at it, but then what does it mean? It means it is a one single value, okay, that you offer to your customers. that converts into a single measurable number. So if you look at all previous examples, that is only one number that they measure. Amazon measures number of transactions. So number of transaction is a single number. If they set a target that we are going to look at 1 billion transactions per month, that becomes their single number to look at it. Or if Airbnb is going to look at booked nights, they will decide my NSM is going to be 10,000 booked nights every month. So translate your business into one measurable number, and then that single number becomes your goal, or that becomes an objective for your company to follow, because then it becomes a measurable. So once you set these transactions, or for example, if you are looking at Nash Agri, or if you are looking at, say, for example, GramPay. GramPay is that single number could be number of social entrepreneurs, because that is the end value they are trying to deliver. They are not there to deliver. So we were redefining the elevator pitch for GramPay. So we started with saying that GramPay is a company into a rural electronic transactions or digital payment consolidation and so on. In one of the sessions, Sudhir, we discussed, and it came out with a brilliant different way of looking at it, saying that GramPay is actually neobank. We went further and said what that GramPay is offering to. GramPay is today offering 600,000 extended officers to any bank in the country. So their NSM in this case is that single number of 600,000 entrepreneurs. Then they can break it further, that how are they going to achieve 6,000? So that means they need a payment infrastructure. That means they need devices. That means they need people to be employed. That means they need payment integration. That means they need digital payment infrastructure and so on. But the single number or single North Star metric for them is the number of social entrepreneurs created or appointed in 1 month. Becomes a very solid number for them to measure. There are another type of metrics which are available, which are popular as well, and it is called OMTM, one metric that matters. But let us see what it means, because there is a very thin line between saying that this is my OMTM versus what my North Star metric is. The difference between OMTM and North Star metric is, in case of NSM, it is a single number your entire company will follow, or every single member will contribute your journey towards that north, and which is a long-term view. Versus your OMTM is always for a given team, and the duration of that metric or that objective is relatively shorter. Let us take the same example of GramPay. So overall GramPay's NSM is 600,000 entrepreneurs in given time, which is a long-term objective. But their OMTM for the device team will be deploy, say, 50,000 devices in 1 quarter. Their OMTM for the payment integration or a digital transaction team would be conduct, say, 500,000 transactions in a month, and so on. So if you look at it, NSM is a number for the entire company, but OMTM is a number for the single team. And those numbers could be different. Those objectives could be different, because all teams have a different purpose of existence. And that's how, if you look at it, image here, I've tried to show that your OMTM will keep changing for individual team over a period of 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and so on. But the company's NSM will remain far constant in a longer term. So what difference it comes? So how do you really compare between my OMTM versus NSM? You need to just ask 4 questions to you, that who is a recipient of this number, or who is the one who is really looking at this objective. If it is the entire company, then obviously it is NSM. If it is one team, then it is OMTM. Is time span going to be far longer? Then it is NSM. If it is shorter duration, then it is OMTM. The length of focus, I already mentioned. The supportive or not a substitute. So please understand, your OMTM is not substituting NSM. Neither NSM is substituting OMTM. You need both. because you need to break down your larger problem into the smaller components, or you need to break down your larger objective into smaller objectives, so that it is measurable, actionable for smaller teams to achieve, and the consolidated effect of all your team objectives translate into your company objectives. Okay. I'll move a little further. Now, if you are looking at what is OMTMs, I've already mentioned about it. It is a focus at the team level. It is a result-oriented, measurable performance matrix, or a measurable matrix for your individual team. You can further break it down to your individual team members as well. So the OMTM for my team, assume that it is selling 50,000 devices in one quarter, and if I have 10 team members, I may end up further cutting it down to 5,000 devices per member, and then sum it up to a team level, becomes a team OMTM, then sum it up to the entire GramPay, becomes the NSM for GramPay. Look at some of the examples. So content creation rate. So for example, we have a startup which is into a education and delivering the L&D related stuff. So their content creation rate for individual team will become an OMTM. At what rate they are converting their required courses into a measurable content, or the content which can be published, content which is useful, content which can be delivered. Number of app installs versus app review rate. So you can set a OMTM for the app development team, that it is not important that only app installs happen, but how many people have left a review for you. That ensures that number of people who are leaving review for you are the people who have used your app for some time. So that rate can become your OMTM for an individual team. Or game level rate. This is very interesting. So there are games which allow you, say, 5 levels for free, and then remaining levels for paid. So if you know that what my rate at which the games are played, or which levels most of the people go, will tell you that which the people play only free levels, or people are really paying to go to the next level, decides your business revenue objectives, and so on. Okay. So there could be many examples relevant to your own business, but always remember, your this measure has to be smart. So what does that smart means? Again, going back to where we started with, what is a good metric. So first S stands for specific. So you need to have a very specific, very simple, very sensible data coming in. M stands for measurable. Your actions and your targets, your objectives have to be measurable and meaningful to your business. They should be achievable objectives in that short run, because now you are not talking about the infinity period. You are talking about 2 months, 3 months, 5 months, 6 months. It has to be achievable and agreed between the teams. Then it has to be a very relevant and reliable. And lastly, it has to be a time bound. So you need to know that this data is going to be get generated every week, maybe fortnight, maybe month, maybe 2 months, and so on. So your OMTM metric has to be a measurable or very smart data. Now going back to the NSM, because that's where we started, that one of the most popular metric to measure is going to be a North Star metric. Then how do I achieve that finally NSM? There are 8 steps you can try to reach to your NSM, or to find out your NSM. So first is identify final point when your value is delivered to customer. So for example, buying a MacBook or buying an iPad is not the value which I realize. I get realization of value only when I start using it and make my entire data very portable with me. Instead of carrying a bulky laptop, I can now carry an iPad. If I want to talk to you about same GramPay example, the final value realization is when the social entrepreneur starts making money. That is the value delivered to the social entrepreneur. It is not just handing over a device to an entrepreneur. It is not having a contract signed with cooperative bank. It is not the contract signed with the payment gateway and so on. So what is that your final point of value realization? Once you identify your final value of realization, do one cross validation. That is this point exactly same for all customers. Until you have the same value realization for all customers, your NSM will not be right, because for set of customers it could be different, for set of customers it can be very different. So you need to have a value point which is very common for all customers. Then check that if this point, so whichever point you finally identify, is really going to help you and measure your success in your line of business, because that point has to be measurable. Once you know that this point is measurable, identify what is the best frequency to calculate that. So appointing social entrepreneur, measuring it every day doesn't make sense, but measuring number of social entrepreneurs appointed per month could make a lot of sense. So the frequency for NSM of GramPay could be of that 1 month as a frequency. Are there any external factors which are impacting this point? Classic example, GramPay is shifting their base from Maharashtra to North India temporarily, because Maharashtra is still not opening as free as it was expected to happen. So the physical movements are still restricted. That external factor is impacting value realization point for GramPay in Maharashtra, but that is not the case in North. So they shifted base to the North. So NSM in the North is still going to be a measurable and very tangible NSM for them, and the value realization is not affected by those external factors in the geography. Is this really going to reflect your business growth? Yes, because the elevator pitch or the objective of GramPay is appoint 600,000 or a million entrepreneurs over a period of time. This is reflecting their business growth. I'm going to talk about the pirate funnel in next slide, but you need to really keep checking that if this has a mutual effect on NSM. And once again check the frequency, that you are not changing that measurement too often. Once you pass through these steps, the number which you get, that single number which we were talking about, that becomes your NSM, and that is your NSM. Let's look at what is what is a pirate funnel. So pirate funnel is a concept, or that is a framework that was established, and that is going to help you to find out what is your weakest point in business to pay an attention to. Because as a startup company, as an initial days company, you have a limited resources, you have a limited time, limited bandwidth to focus on very critical business points. And this funnel framework will help you to find out what are those weakest link in your business where you need to pay highest attention. So it has first point as an acquisition, that how many people or how many customers are you reaching out to. The activation, how many people are taking a important step. For example, I was talking to Jaydeep yesterday, that how many people are you meeting is not very important unless they activate your service or they sign up your business. Okay, so after you have decided how many customers you are reaching, you also need those people to sign up for your business. After they have signed up, how many you are able to retain, not in the second time but till nth time. It has to have a constant, and that's where we were talking about a lifetime value sometime in some of previous sessions. That's where it becomes very important. Then are these people are going to pay you revenue? How soon they are going to start paying you? How much they are going to pay you? Is this in line with your revenue objective in your mind, and so on? And then finally, referral. If your business is completely based on relationship, the referral becomes very important. And how many of your previous customers are recommending you to the next set of customers, that becomes your referral. So if you pass through double A triple R, or it can pronounce as R, it's like some expression, that will help you to find out your NSM, and all those mutual actions are beneficial to you. I'm very quickly going to show you how I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. There are subsequent sessions in next few weeks which are going to talk more about it. But if I really look at it only a life cycle of a startup business, you will have a different metrics that will help you. So in your initial stages, your qualitative data, your first user experience, your retention data is something you would want to look at it. As you start going further from an activation, retention to referral, you will start looking at your conversion rate. You are going to look at your optimization. You are going to look at the growth process and so on as your metric. When you go further down, you will start looking at some of your other parameters, and final aim could be looking at your market cap and looking at your share value. That could be your last metric you could be interested in. Then, to sum up what we have been talking about, there is no growth without measuring, because if you don't know what to measure, if you don't have a reference point, you will not know at what pace I am growing, you will not know what growth I am talking about. So you need that metric again to measure your growth. Measure the right thing. Only right thing will tell you that if you are on the right path or you are not on the right path. Avoid vanity metrics, stay away from them. Only look at the actionable metric and focus on those actionable metric. Most importantly, bring your all teams. Every single member need to know what metric they are looking at, what OMTM their individual team have, and what is an NSM. It is important to give them a big picture. At the same time, big picture broken down into a measurable, actionable actions for them for a smaller duration. The entire business model, the entire life stages, and at which level or which stage you are currently at will decide which metric do you measure, you typically measure. I've shown you in previous slide. And these are the metric which will help you to accelerate growth. You will have to keep probably experimenting with some of the numbers. You will have to keep experimenting with some of the OMTMs. You will have to keep experimenting with some of the measures, the way you are measuring and so on. But that's where it is. This will help probably result into getting your assumptions validated on which you started your business. Is your objective right? Is your assumption right? You will probably in the process innovate different patterns. You will innovate suddenly some different areas where it is logical to extend your business, and it becomes your success measure. Next, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just suggesting some measures, but Alankar is going to cover them into some other session. He is going to talk about the financial metric, and some of these will be covered there. And that's it for today. I'm going to take a pause now, stop sharing my screen. We can possibly then talk about some of the questions. And Sudhir, Alankar, I will need some your help because you have been looking at all our people, and I'll stop here now.